Good morning, everyone. Bienvenue à tous. Welcome to this event. My name is Eddie Campbell. I'm the President and Vice Chancellor of the University of New Brunswick. And I'd like to thank you for joining us here this morning to hear what is sure to be an enlightening discussion about the ways in which the arts can be used to foster social harmony, civic engagement, inclusion, and innovation. First of all, I was told that Senator Kinsella is here. I didn't, where is he? Sir, welcome to, I'm glad to be able to welcome to your own auditorium. This lecture is the third in our Big Thinking series and promises to be one of the highlights of Congress 2011. It's truly an honor for the University of New Brunswick and St. Thomas University to host this Congress and to welcome so many influential individuals from Canada and around the world. Congress and the Big Thinking series provide us with the opportunity to hear from some of today's best minds as they share insights on issues that affect us all. So with that, I would welcome you and would like to turn the podium over to Graham Carr, the President of the Canadian Federation for the Humanities and Social Sciences. Graham.
Thank you, Dr. Campbell, for your introduction, and I'd like to just take a moment at the outset to extend a very gracious thank you to both the University of New Brunswick and St. Thomas University, who have proven to be wonderful hosts for Congress. It's no easy feat to organize a Congress, and they've done a superb job. And I also want to acknowledge the tremendous support that the Federation has received from the City of Fredericton and indeed from the province of New Brunswick. This Big Thinking lecture this morning is brought to us in partnership between the Federation and the Ministry of Citizenship and Immigration Canada. Et il me fait plaisir de tous vous accueillir ce matin pour cette causerie Voir Grand. The Right Honorable Michaëlle Jean made human rights, citizen participation, global solidarity, and inclusiveness her priorities as the 27th Governor General of Canada from 2005 to 2010, and before that as a widely respected award-winning journalist and news anchor. The same passion drives her work today as UNESCO Special Envoy for Haiti and co-president of the Michaëlle Jean Foundation. Son mari, Jean-Daniel Lafont, ex-professeur de philosophie, est une cinéaste reconnue dont les films maintes fois primés au Canada et à l'étranger provoquent la réflexion et parfois la controverse. Écrivain, il est l'auteur de plusieurs livres, de films radiophoniques et de théâtre. L'œuvre de M. Lafont démontre la puissance transformatrice de la culture. Cet engagement est poursuivi durant le mandat du gouverneur général. Il est maintenant cofondateur de la Fondation Michaëlle Jean, dont il est le coprésident et le chef de la direction. As Madame Jean has said, and I'm quoting here so that there are no intellectual property concerns, art is a powerful means of assembling citizens, of opening meeting spaces for dialogue that remove the borders between us. Art allows us to understand who we are, and in so doing, it helps to deepen our sense of belonging. For M. Lafont, in all its forms, culture reminds us of our duty to build a better and more just world. Faced with increasing barbarism, it offers us a powerful weapon of mass construction. Avant que je donne la parole à Madame Jean et Monsieur Lafont, si vous voulez poser des questions, veuillez les écrire et donner au personnel de la Fédération qui circule dans la salle. We're on quite a tight time constraint because there is another event coming into this room shortly after noon. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming the Right Honorable Michaëlle Jean M. Jean-Daniel Lafont.
Merci infiniment. Dear friends, chers amis, c'est très très agréable d'être ici parmi vous aujourd'hui. Pour mon mari Jean-Daniel Lafont et moi-même, c'est un honneur, je dirais, un immense privilège que de pouvoir participer et apporter notre contribution à cet important rassemblement de femmes, d'hommes et de jeunes que vous êtes, tous têtes chercheuses, vous qui pensez, vous qui secouez avec vigueur les idées reçues, vous qui posez des actions aussi tous les jours, qui agissez et qui créez partout dans ce vaste pays qui est le nôtre, ce pays que j'aime qualifier de tous les possibles. Et je remercie la Fédération canadienne des sciences humaines de nous inclure dans cette exploration nécessaire, toujours nécessaire et essentielle, des forces vives, des peuples et des lieux qui définissent la nature même du Canada. As former professors, my husband Jean-Daniel and I always find great joy in being in the company of old colleagues, of friends and fellow academicians with whom we share, I would say, a passion for wisdom and knowledge. And what better place to hold this wonderful gathering of hearts and minds than here in Fredericton, a great city of learning which boasts several cutting-edge colleges, universities, and research centers. Convening here this week, hundreds of researchers, instructors, policymakers, and activists who are joining their voices in a multidisciplinary academic summit in Canada, that's quite an achievement. For these, I would say, academic Olympics are beacons of knowledge and intellectual freedom illuminating Canada's social, cultural, and even political landscape. Canadians benefit tremendously from your research and critical insight, which enable us to challenge received ideas, to interrogate old ways of doing things, to explore some innovative practices, and also, very importantly, to revitalize our democratic system based on the fundamental values of mutual respect, of truth, social justice, and freedom. It is from the vantage point of our democracy that we would like to speak to you this morning from the heart about some of our observations and our experience with the arts across Canada during the last 6 years of our life. As some of you may know, when then Prime Minister Paul Martin approached me to become 27th Governor General and Commander-in-Chief of Canada in 2005, I took 4 weeks to make up my mind. And it was not the glamour of the institution that caught my attention, nor was it the prestige conferred upon the office holders that swayed me. Rather, I was moved by the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to paint or to ignite a more inclusive form of governance on the canvas of our democratic life. And do not get me wrong, of course, I was aware that part of the institution's history had been written with the poison pen of colonialism. Of course, I knew that some of its pages had been stained by the ambiguous treatment of Canada's First Peoples. And I realized that some of its protagonists had also belittled the French fact in our country. We all know the story. But I was also aware that starting in 1947, the institution began its long march to modernity when King George VI signed the letters patent, transferring virtually all the powers of the sovereign to governors general, who, beginning with Vincent Massey, were no longer born in Britain and were no longer required to refer their decisions to London. As an intrinsic part of the Canadianization of our laws and public institutions, the office of Governor General began to grow like a living tree, according to the rhythms and cadences of Canadian sovereignty, gradually embracing our nation's founding values, which are now laid out in our Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And it is for those reasons that I felt comfortable walking along the path charted by my predecessors, a path paved with a series of prerogatives and reserved powers, which, as 19th century constitutional scholar Walter Bagehot explained, confer upon the Governor General, acting as de facto head of state, the right to be consulted, to encourage, and to warn they who exercise executive power. So in following Baghot's cue and acknowledging the Governors General are also expected to promote a more harmonious and compassionate society, I believe that with a dash of creativity, of audacity, and of course a bit of thick skin, I could chart a course for my tenure. A course that could help strengthen the practice of citizenship in Canada. A course that could enhance solidarity among disparate groups, and that could reaffirm the centrality of public spheres, particularly grassroots communities, to our democratic system. And at the heart of this conviction was my personal motto, breaking down solitudes. I conveyed my belief that the time had come for Canadians to eliminate the specter of all the solitudes that divide us and to rally our creative forces around the goals and aspirations that can bring us together. Easier said than done, of course. For I needed to figure out how to reconcile what some call the abstract principles of our Constitution with my vision for the country. So I chose to go directly to Canadians for advice. My husband, Jean-Daniel, at times our daughter, Marie-Hélène, and I undertook a journey across the country, from coast to coast to coast, to create spaces for dialogue with women, men, and youth in their community organizations, in their neighborhoods, their dropping centers for homeless youth, their shelters for battered women, and even in prisons. And we discovered courageous people who are defying the odds to make a difference in their communities and around them. And they are the movers and shakers of our society, enriching our social fabric and strengthening the bonds of sympathy, to quote Charles Taylor, which keep us together as a nation. And during many of our conversations, citizens, particularly youth, told us, and I quote, "The arts and culture are key to unlocking the creative and innovative potential of our communities. The arts are vital to building social harmony among Canadians. The arts are crucial to establishing a relationship of trust between citizens and our public institutions." And these words were spoken against the backdrop of their rather pessimistic outlook on the health of our democracy. People bemoaned their inability to have a meaningful influence on decisions affecting their everyday lives. They decried the tendency to dismiss or devalue their unique ideas and solutions. And they conveyed frustration at the reluctance of governments of all stripes to invest adequately in the arts as tools to resolve some of the intractable problems facing our communities. To many, their resentment is symptomatic of a broader malaise plaguing our country, a malaise that sees citizens' desire to come up with solutions, to act, to exchange, uprooted by technocratic forms of governance, which elevate bureaucratic imperatives at the expense of the ideas of grassroots know-how of local communities. And I heard that so many times. As you can imagine, this imbalance breeds resentment, alienation, cynicism, and a sense of powerlessness. Among many, it generates apathy toward politics and toward our democratic system. And as American thinker Benjamin Barber reminds us, it can open the door to criminal, fundamentalist, and even terroristic elements to swoop in like thieves in the night to steal the disillusioned into their fold. For me, the situation facing the arts in our country was emblematic of the gulf separating citizens from our public institutions. This because I was seeing directly how the arts and culture are transforming lives and allowing youth of all backgrounds, Black, white, Asian, Aboriginal, working class, street-involved, and upper middle class, to become more assertive, to refine their worldview, to develop a desire to learn, to raise important issues, and to invite us all to listen to their ideas on tackling problems like exclusions, poverty, environmental decay, and injustices of all kinds. And please do not get me wrong, I'm not talking about the sexism, homophobia, and violence of gangster rap. Nor am I evoking the criminal practice of graffiti tagging. I am describing the ways in which young people are using the arts as a focal point for social transformation. For as we speak, thousands of young people are returning to the power of words, for example, through poetry, or what they call spoken words, slam, and even hip-hop and rap, to express their unique perspectives. And we need to listen to them, and we need to listen to their words and ideas. Young people are drawing upon the power of imagery, color, and tone to paint their rather sophisticated and often provocative visions of the world onto visual arts or, at times, large murals through graffiti. And young people are evoking the deep pathos of drama to persuade their peers to become authors of their community's destiny through street theater, documentary film, and animation. And their work and testimonies, which I witnessed directly, crystallized my conviction and that of my husband that we needed to shed light on the ways in which the arts and culture help break down the solitudes impeding, as we say in French, notre vivre ensemble, our sense of togetherness, our sense of belonging. So we drew on the creative spirit of the new generation to host numerous town halls across the country and abroad during 40 state visits, providing dynamic spaces for dialogue and exchange between peoples of all ages, backgrounds, and horizons on issues of common concern. And these forums were ways to reintroduce, or as young people say, to remix deliberative democracy to Canadians in its purest form by giving citizens, particularly youth, a direct stake in the well-being of their communities and broader society, and by validating their very creative initiatives and recognizing their endeavors. They were also designed to provide unique opportunities for different sectors, communities, and generations to unite under the same roof in order to exchange best practices and develop joint action plans. For my husband, my team, and I not only convened young artists, we ensured that mayors, municipal councillors, provincial cabinet ministers, members of the Order of Canada, business leaders, philanthropists, academics, social service providers, and many others, many decision makers were present to participate in the conversation, to discuss common problems, and to come up with joint solutions alongside ordinary citizens and that in a spirit of respect, in a spirit of inclusiveness and reciprocity. And these forums were about highlighting shared responsibilities and promoting a spirit of solidarity throughout Canadian society. It wasn't always easy. We experienced tense moments of disagreement, dissension, and even conflict during some of the town halls. And I was also put under a magnifying glass by those who questioned my actions. Was I being too political, some said, by giving citizens a voice and banning censorship during our dialogue sessions? Did I have a secret agenda, given everyone knows that governors general are really only supposed to be figureheads? Were my actions too provocative? I admit it, I was walking a thin line, often bringing the institution into places it had never been before. But to every criticism, my response remained the same. Democracy is about giving a voice to citizens. Democracy is about taking risks. Democracy is about being audacious. Democracy is about nurturing a plurality of viewpoints, perspectives, and ideas. And democracy is about building understanding and even common ground among citizens. And looking back, I think my gamble paid off. Why? Because we all gained a powerful lesson in citizenship, democracy, and governance. We saw decision makers and citizens brought into direct contact with each other as equals, which saw new synergies, new partnerships, and new relationships blossom, and which saw communities empowered to set their own agenda and to call upon elected officials and public institutions to follow their lead rather than the other way around. I made an additional contribution by relaying every idea, every concern, and every solution I heard directly to the powers that be, fulfilling what I considered my constitutional and moral responsibilities to the nation. For I was convinced then, as I am now, that a Governor General can and must be a catalyst and a sounding board, to use Jürgen Habermas' expression, that builds bridges between citizens and decision makers, that allows citizen voices to resonate across the country, and that works on deepening the spirit of reciprocity and compassion that defines our character as Canadians. And that, to me, is what good governance is about. And I am persuaded that as a powerful tool for social mediation and integration, the arts and culture can play a defining role in that regard. Why? Because the outcome can be extraordinary, and it is so real. As you will now see in a video that we wanted to present to you, a video that gives you an excerpt and that tells a story of our experience in Winnipeg's North Point Douglas neighborhood, which was so inspirational that at the end of my mandate, my husband and I co-founded the Michael Jean Foundation as my legacy as former Governor General. And Jean-Daniel will tell you more about the foundation, its mission, after the video presentation. Please enjoy.
This is a GG remix collabo.
Can we talk? I wanna hear your voice. I wanna hear your thoughts. Everything you gotta see. Just understand that it's possible to make a change and come together.
Her Excellency wanted to come and do an urban arts forum at our place, and you know, I was shocked. I was really shocked, And also to find out that, part of our mandate was to talk about how youth and arts can contribute to a community and a community's development. So once I started to learn more about what the urban arts forums were about, I thought, what a perfect fit. What a perfect fit. And we could really gather a group of people who have made a difference in their communities, not knowing what was about to happen, not knowing that the children and people that who others kind of overlook in the daily lives would be the ones to make the greatest impact.
Nightmares will take control of your life if you are not wide awake. So where to go, bro? You just thrown your whole life away in exchange for some pills filled with temporary thrills that kills the will to build your skills because you thought it was ill. But on the real, like Jack and Jill, all that is going downhill. So how about you just chill for a moment and give second thoughts? Reconstruct your plots, put down that weapon you bought, for God knows it's not needed. Even in the most heated situation, to be defeated by temptation only means that you are weak and impatient. I see a combination lock on your brain that you must decode. But since you don't know it, I suppose that's something you could just think about for now, as you sit there in death row.
We're all about words instead of weapons. Words is weapons, so listen. This is how it goes. Yo. I got a passion for microphone harassing, using words for killing like a lyrical assassin. And my ability is such, with great skill I've been known to kill with one touch. A clean hit that leaves no mark, lyrical dart, poisonous ink to penetrate the walls of the heart, reversing the flow of blood, causing you to collapse. A system crash with no time for you to react, but you step back, gasp and heave. You're struggling to find the words to battle me, but you just can't breathe. You stand frozen in a state of utter disbelief. This MC diss you at a level that you'll never achieve. They say the pen is mighty, I'll swing it like a sword. You sure you wanna fight me? Cause survival is unlikely. I could leave you with an unsightly scar within the pages of your rhyme book, so that your peers won't even wanna look. I'll write a song with a hook, mic in a clenched fist, so when I kick a lyric, you'll want meaning from the hip.
I put the rhythm in submission until it taps out. Stand up and punch lines while I try to knock the track out. Passed out, staring at the paper with the blackout. It needs to snap out. Reclaim the stage as my house.
When the Governor General held her forum here, I felt a sense of urgency in not only her message, but indeed the young ladies that spoke and openly read a letter to the Governor General, more or less a cry for help. And I felt that in my capacity as a member of a government that we have to do something.
I thought that what a brilliant opportunity to have these two young children read the letter on behalf of their class and bring awareness in this type of a forum. And not only that, but to invite the people here to our place on that night who could make a difference.
The community wanted to become part of the solution, and that's critical to any progressive community development.
What happened was we realized when the kids spoke that we hadn't done our job as adults. We hadn't said this has to be a safe community. And the kids, when they wrote that letter to the Governor General, was like kicking us in the ass and saying, get going, do something. And then Sandy and Chris came up with the something to do, and everybody said, it's the crack dealers, it's the crack dealers. And every one of the crack houses had 5 to 10 kids, 12 to 16-year-old kids who were their runners, and those crack dealers were their role models. And we had to take that away from them.
I was at a meeting, and there was about 4 or 5 of us there, and thank goodness for a creative thinker like myself. They were talking about things that cops never worked, never did anything.
That's Citizens on Patrol.
Yeah. So I said, look, why can't we? I know what happens on my street.
And I said, I know what happens on my street.
Yeah. So back at her place, we're saying, why can't we start something like that? Let's have street whips. They know what's going on.
So
brilliant idea. But she picked up on it.
Then we just used our home phone, and I made up a the Point power line, because this is Point Douglas, and I wanted something that the power piece was important, that people would feel empowered, that this is our power. We can go here and get something done.
And it was just so beautifully simple.
And it fits very much with the Aboriginal culture of banishment. This is Terry and Sandy told us about this and said, you know, what happens in an Aboriginal community originally, if someone broke the mores, broke the rules of the band, they would be banished for a period of time. So what we're doing to the drug dealers, crack dealers particularly, is we're banishing them from Point Douglas for a period of time. And it's really working. I mean, we have quite a few of them have come back to live in Point Douglas, and they're not dealing anymore. We weren't big on throwing a bunch of people in jail, so we discovered this method of getting the dealers evicted, and the provincial government has set up this plan called the Community Safety Act, and they didn't need criminal code level of justice. They needed proof that it seemed like they were dealing, and they couldn't arrest them, but they could evict them, which was perfect for us. So we started getting these drug dealers evicted. Well, all these kids lost their jobs, and most of them went back to school.
And now 32 crack houses were closed in how?
Probably in the first year.
First year.
Now we can work with people, and that allows us to tailor our approaches from a solely enforcement-based approach, which is essential. We still have to, arrest the bad guy and, do our search warrants and do the enforcement-based strategies, but we also have to work in a more holistic manner, like I said, through policing, crime prevention, through social development with the prevention and intervention strategies.
I think government has to stop playing the role of being the savior of all. Government has to stop and listen every now and again. That in fact, young people like those two young ladies that I heard back in 2007 also have ideas of how they want to restore peace and harmony in North Point Douglas. And I took the comments that they made to the Governor General very seriously.
Instead of community members walking around afraid at night and stuff, the gang members started to crawl down the back lanes, and they were afraid of the community. And it was almost like a huge wave took over the community as people said, hey, they're afraid of us instead of us being afraid of them.
When children have a serious issue and a serious concern, that if caring and willing adults can gather around those children, that change can happen.
Talking to more people about the problems that people might be having, about like how they might be having problems about their family members and how the family members might be getting addicted to some of the things that they didn't used to be doing, about what kind of area you're living in. Maybe you could tell someone about that.
Join clubs, try to stay safe, don't get into violence.
Getting into more programs to start telling people that that they can start working with you and all that.
This model would work in any community.
I really think so.
We can come together. We can come together. Everything you gotta be sure. Just understand. You gotta let me know. To make a change and come together. Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
So that's just one example of the many experiences that we've lived during this last 6 years. Jean-Daniel,
Oui.
c'est à ton tour.
Merci. It's difficult to be more eloquent, I could try to slam that, but I'm some reserve, And, as you can see from the video, sure, presentation, but also from my wife's testimony. Culture. Culture is a shared asset in the same way air, water, and all natural resources are. It is central to modern societies in many different forms. It might even be added that we can no longer measure the success of a country, a province, a city, or a community of any kind by its economic achievements alone. More than ever, the development of a culture that is the best of humanity and essential to a shared life together contributes not only to individual well-being, but also to economic growth and success. So, what role can culture, the arts, and creativity play in society? Culture has a role to play in education, in diplomacy, in the economy and human rights. It is a part of the very meaning of democracy, for which it stands surely an equal opportunity. It must not yield to the domination of media, the design progress in communication technology, or the pathological expansion of faith in economics as the answers to everything. On the contrary, it must preserve a delicate balance among these different components of our civilization. That is why I surmise today that culture is the antidote of the ills of the civilization, which is characteristic of the times we live in. For a while, the individualism that has spread over the last 30 years has allowed greater autonomy for the subject, true, but expanded freedoms and personal responsibility, but it has also led to collateral damage to our living patterns. French sociologist, Edgar Morin, believes that the downside of individualism has been a deterioration in traditional solidarities, a fragmentation of individuals, a weakening of the sense of responsibility for one's neighbor, self-centeredness, and what could be called a metastasis of the ego. We should never forget that the first traces of mankind's humanity, the first step beyond barbarity, are works of art. From the farthest reaches of our history, stony mountainside, cave walls, or the middle of an African desert. Today, art remains. You saw that in Point Douglas, for example. Art remains a powerful tool for communication, socialization, and the intermingling of cultures. You can find, for example, China in Montreal. You can find, 2 years ago, the Louvre in Quebec City, Art Negre in Vancouver, or Haitian painting in Calgary, and so on. Or a Palestinian artist, for example, in Toronto now. This wonderful cross-pollination of ideas, aesthetic perspectives, and artistic practices offers a remedy for stifling nationalism, and it is, in fact, the most beautiful way of bridging our solitudes. We must leave to the artist the job and the duty of exploring new territory, new avenues, and different media, and make the artist our sentinel and our courier, using technological change to explore radical change. Personally, I can bear witness as a filmmaker. For the last 30 years, documentary filmmaking has enabled me to go where I would never have gone if I had not had films to make that ask questions about identities, nationalisms, exile, revolutions, barbarity, the relationship between the artist and politics, freedom, tolerance, and racism. Making films has enabled me to go out and discover other people, to follow the pathways of knowledge, and to share things with my audience. In my films, I pursue an itinerary that is much philosophical as cinematographic. I challenge the obvious media truths that relies on the illusion that everything can be said about an event, a person, a situation, or applied, because I know that it cannot. Instead, I try to say everything that can be known about the event, about the person, about the situation, or the plot that will lead to a heightened awareness, impelling the spectator and society to do their duty as thinking beings first. I know that when faced by the tragedy or the beauty of this world, our duty is not to laugh or to weep. Our duty is first to understand. The fact is that truth is not given. It's not a given, it is often plural, and it is this complexity that an artist's work must reflect and the risk of inviting controversy, because in the search of truth, confrontation is inevitable. I know that what I am saying about filmmaking, which is what I do and what I love, I can say about artistic creation in general. Of itself, creation is not a vehicle for social transformation or cultural intervention, still less for social work. I believe its role is a more basic one of resistance, founded on critical thinking first. It is in the sense that art is a primary locus for lively thought within a culture and a society. It is a space for freedom and expression by the younger generations, often their only way of feeling included, just as it is the last resort of the outcast of society. I am persuaded that a country that no longer listens to its creative people is culturally doomed. From the moment, I know that, you know that too. From the moment my wife became Governor General on September 27, 2005, she expressed a desire to break down solitudes. To my way of thinking, art and culture have a dominant place in the progression from words to actions. As she clearly laid out in her presentation, within the constitutional framework that defines the non-partisan role of Canada's head of state, we ventured to imagine new realms of dialogue and debate, giving prominence to youth, belonging, and emerging cultures. In January 2007 in Calgary, we inaugurated the first of a series of community forums on the urban arts across Canada. There we engage young artists in a dialogue on their essential role in fostering open communication between the have and the have-nots of our society, and in bringing people together around common aims. In Calgary, as in other cities across Canada, participants explained how for many young people, urban arts constitutes a locus of critical resistance against a culture of isolation and indifference so pervasive in our society. They described how it enables him to behold the sublime in the midst of the concrete landscapes many call home, stirring a strong desire to renew democratic life. Similarly, we tested new models of democratic communication through the use and development of our website, which went online in September 2006, called Citizen Voices, in French, À l'écoute des citoyens, linked to the official GG website. For the first time, the Governor General of Canada was able to use a virtual chat to engage directly in a dialogue all of Canada's citizens, particularly young ones. These new information technologies are unique tools for the enrichment of citizen dialogue. Their development is inevitable, yet it seems clear that traditional media and politicians have yet to grasp fully the issues related to this radical transformation. For the facilitating an unprecedented shift away from mass media towards what French thinker Joël de Rosnay dubs the media of the masses. This prescient expression refers to a new horizontal form of communication fueled by the new platforms emerging almost spontaneously and driven by the newest information and communication technologies. These platforms are giving citizens a new counterpower, which is transforming their relation to traditional powers, such as the state and the private sector, which erstwhile pursued a rather pyramidal or top-down approach to communicating with society. To varying degrees, these changes entail the development of new aesthetics, new economic models, and new ways of living together. Thus, the media of masses is changing the relationship between politics and citizens. The individual is increasingly disaffiliated, like a free electron, free of the church, free of the family, free of the state, and thus of partisan considerations. People are gradually coming together on the basis of a community of interest. This is something we saw almost immediately after the launching of the website, Citizen Voices. Citizens developed networks and stimulating debate about very specific themes: youth, women, culture, the environment, and we measured the impact of these major changes on civil society, political life, and culture. In these circumstances, then, we rethink the relationship between art, culture, and society, and very specifically with youth, which became, at the end of my wife's tenure, the main focus, and now the main focus of our new foundation, the Mediation Foundation. Over the last 5 years, as my wife explained before, we had the immense privilege of hosting countless town hall events called Youth Dialogues, Urban Arts Forum, Art Matters across the country and abroad, through which we gave youth and artists an unprecedented opportunity to have their voices heard. It was a way of raising awareness, fostering dialogue and collaboration among the generation, and working towards social inclusion and cohesion across the country. But more importantly, it allowed us to reveal the extent to which the struggle to overcome social ills such as discrimination, poverty, and alienation is fundamentally first a cultural struggle. a struggle that requires that we draw from the rich and diverse manifestation of Canadian culture in order to begin making our communities, our society, and dare I say, the world more habitable for human beings. This we saw on numerous occasions, whether at the Soul Gallery in Ottawa, at the Maison des Jeunes de la Côte des Neiges in Montreal, at Century in Vancouver, at the Whispers Neighbor Gallery in Toronto, and among the collective of young hip-hop artists in Iqaluit, in Clyde River, in Nunavut, and also in North Point Douglas, as you saw. We met young people who are using the arts to sow the seeds of the seed of hope, the seed of hope and opportunity in spaces left barren by the scourge of social exclusion, marginalization, and despair too. Our foundation is ultimately the culmination and extension of this vision that unites, on the one hand, the art and culture with social transformation, solidarity, and citizenship, by putting a spotlight on the artistic engagement of young people. Our aim is simple. With the help of a nice and very engaged team of a national board of directors, of volunteers, and a network of organizations and individuals across Canada, we seek to support young people who use the arts and culture as tools to foster social change in their community through dialogue, intergenerational collaboration, mentorship, public forums, and workshops. We see our work as coming as a sort of reinforcement for youth at the grassroots level, rather than providing what we could call one-size-fits-all solutions imposed from above. We are persuaded that culture is the glue that connects the disparate components of the Canadian fabric together in one beautiful tapestry of fellowship, common values, and solidarity. That is why we look forward to creating wonderful opportunities for exchanges, dialogue, and collaboration across the boundaries of disciplines, generations, regions, and perspectives. Ultimately, it is by creating that common bond across our differences that change can be imagined and then imparted to our society. It is all about sharing the transformative power of the arts with all Canadians and collaborating with a variety of institutions, including universities from across the country. For, after all, universities from across the country are bastions of freedom against the creeping barbarism of cultural and intellectual conformity and the scourge of social and political apathy. I hope so. For us, for the Michael Jean Foundation, arts and culture can be a tool for social mediation. Our very first thought is to defend free access to culture for everyone. To that end, Canada's cultural diversity is a treasure that we must actively exploit. You know, I didn't hear a lot about the importance of culture in our social life during the last federal campaign. Nor did I hear a lot about the vital necessity to protect and reinforce the presence of the arts in Canada. I'm very worried by this silence, these oversights. Culture, arts, such as the environment, are essential to our survival. And a country that neglects its culture and does not respect its environment is a country that is going to ruin. To conclude, I want to say, on one hand, humans have the genius to build, at a very high cost, highly sophisticated weapons of mass destruction to make humanity less human. On the other hand, humans have the genius to contribute to make humanity more human by using arts and culture, which are the best means, the best weapons of mass construction. You have to make the choice. It is the purpose of the Michael Jean Foundation, the second hand. Thank you.
Merci, Madame Jean. Merci, Monsieur Lafont. Il reste encore une vingtaine de minutes pour poser des questions. Si vous voulez poser des questions, as I said earlier in French, I would ask you to write them down. They're flooding in on the cards here, and I'll pass them along. And I guess while I'm just working my way through the first few here, maybe I could ask a preliminary question, which is the very hopeful and inspiring video from North Douglas demonstrates in many ways how art and culture can be mobilized not only as a tool of individual expression and social conversation, but also community transformation. But I realize that we're also aware that you're UNESCO representative in Haiti, and I'm wondering to what extent the kinds of issues that you're dealing with through the foundation here in Canada are
well, actually, can you hear me? Yes, okay. As you know, UNESCO is about building Haiti. Includes rebuilding communities through arts and culture also. It is something that is so profoundly rooted in the Haitian life. After the earthquake, people were surprised to see Haitians, for example, singing and even dancing just to gather their strength and their sense of hope. That's the way people survive in Haiti. Haiti also, in terms of its richness, has this amazing heritage, treasures. It's a place of history, it's a place of culture. Haiti in humanity was the first Black republic built by slaves who freed themselves. And by doing so, it was really carrying and inspired by the values of liberté, égalité, fraternité from the French Revolution. So the slaves in Saint-Domingue said, well, liberté, égalité, fraternité, c'est aussi pour nous les nègres. We know what we are deprived of. It's also for us. And you have men, women who were dispossessed of everything, their names, their human dignity, their history, their memory. They were never slaves from the same ethnic group on a plantation because they didn't want them to be able to communicate and then form plans, strategize. And so how were they able de renaître à eux-mêmes? C'était par la culture. C'était en rassemblant ces traits de civilisation qu'ils avaient en commun. Reconstructing even a language, taking the words coming from the master and building a language on the syntax of, the common syntax of the many African languages from the region where they were from. So this act of creativity is still there in Haiti. Haiti's economy also can be rebuilt through this treasure of a very strong culture. Also, concretely, what we saw here in this example in North Point Douglas, I saw those same experiences happening also in Haiti. In neighborhoods, communities that were plagued by violence, criminality, very well organized, sophisticated crime organizations who were taking advantage of situations of exclusion, because that's always what they do, and they do it so well. Taking advantage of precarious situations, a sense of powerlessness, a sense of no future, and having these young children, putting them at risk, asking them to do the dirty job. And I saw some initiatives, and some in Haiti supported by Canada, by Brazil, working with Haitians, where arts and culture were used as really a space, a tool, a very powerful one, to bring people together, to have them express their thoughts, to rebuild their inner strength, their confidence, and to take actions. And we saw these experiences as tool of mediation, working very well and delivering results. I know that everybody now wants always to hear about results. I saw it happening. You can rebuild a community through these experiences and really free, it's fascinating. You saw this young man at the beginning. Maybe if you don't pay attention, you believe, well, it's a kid singing and rapping and listen to the words. This child is really pinpointing, situation in his life, realities around him, and he's saying, we need to do something. We need to come together and take actions. So yes, indeed, it's universal, and it's happening everywhere. It was fascinating for us to explore these, I would say, these networks of people working with these tools, and to see how connected they are also to others who are doing exactly the same elsewhere in the world. It's fascinating to see this energy at work and how it is part of building healthy communities.
I would like to say something to avoid the confusion, The Michael Jean Foundation is absolutely not engaged in IT. That's very important.
But he said it's the same.
No, it's only to share the thing. So there's no confusion. You were talking on behalf of UNESCO, not about the foundation. It's very important because the mandate of the foundation is Canada. Yeah. Only Canada. That's for me very important.
National scope.
Sure, we have maybe some lesson to exchange, a lot of lesson to exchange with other countries. And what happens, for example, in IT is very important because it's a lesson for us too, because when a country is completely disorganized, when the government failed, when the nature is your worst enemy at this while, what remains? Culture. Culture. If you want to rebuild a society, you start with culture. It is the rock where is it possible to build a house. It's more solid than the earth sometimes. And that's very important to say that. But we are not, as foundation, engaged that. It's two offices completely separated.
Quelque chose que vous avez dit juste à la fin de votre discours a évidemment bien résonné avec quelques auditeurs, because I have two questions here, multiple questions here, asking about the role of the university, though not necessarily a university education, in supporting the nexus of youth, arts, and innovation. And I wonder if you would care to comment.
I think the role of the university is also to observe, to research, to gather, and to validate the very innovative, socially innovative initiatives that are taken and built by grassroots organizations. It's always been the case. I think a university has to be also in the spirit of the community and has to be supportive of the community and has to make sure that the solutions that come from the citizens also can resonate. And I think that the university can help actually the grassroots initiative strengthen, their practices. The connection between a space like this for thoughts, for knowledge, is about reinforcing also a community. And of course, it's people, what people are. I know that as I worked for years in the women movement, at the time building a network of shelters for women victims of violence in Quebec, and then after that elsewhere in Canada, it was very important to work in close collaboration with the universities who actually helped us, who validated what we were saying and what we were doing, on the ground. So it's crucial.
But what is very important for me, because for the foundation, because the foundation is located on the campus of the University of Ottawa. We are in a patrimonial house, small house, open to on the street, and just behind us there is a homeless shelter, The university is there, and the homeless shelter too. And I think it's very important to know that for the students, they have to be very open to the city first, and also to spread their knowledge from words to action, That's very important, I think, sure, we are in university working to create some elites, but we have to create people involved in the reality of this society. Because more and more, because the decreasing of the different power we were talking about just before, more and more, I think the power of the thoughts, the power of thinking ways, of dialogue, it is the role of this the university to be open to that, to be open to the public too, and to exchange. In the same time, they have their role to create something different, an elite. But this elite has to be, to spread more than it was done till now, I think so. Better engagement, un meilleur engagement, un plus grand engagement social. That's very important now. And sure, it's done, but it's not, it could be better. It could be better. And it's very interesting to be located on this campus, because we are working also with students. It's a way to mix people, because the foundation is open to a lot of different people. For example, we had a forum just some 3 or 4 days before the election, the votation. And it was about democracy and using arts and youth to try to fight against the apathy, the apathy of youth. They are not voting a lot, And it was interesting to be in this university, because we had the students, but also people coming from completely outside, young people, and very articulated, sometimes more articulated than young people studying in university. You remember you had young people coming from Montreal to Ottawa, for example, coming from Montreal North, a very tough neighborhood. And the dialogue was great, very rich. Sure, I don't know if we increase exactly the votation of youth, but during this time, because it was also on the website, dispatch on the website, we had a fantastic dialogue at this time. And it's this capacity the university have to create dialogue, to be a partner, you know. And that's what we are doing with the University of Ottawa, and also because I accepted, as I told you, to be, what is that? Senior fellow, distinguished senior fellow, distinguished senior. At the University of Carleton University. It's another way to create a place where it's possible to have a research group about what we're doing, because that's very important, you know.
And what is
action
happening.
needs also distance from action to have a reflection.
Jean-Daniel, il y a beaucoup de questions.
Maybe.
And we're not going to answer them all.
And Dick was the same, you know. Never. I never enjoyed my wife.
And I'm trying desperately to be on my best behavior.
Try to balance that, you know.
As we were discussing beforehand, as you know, this morning we kicked off the day with a big thinking lecture by Chief Wilton Littlechild from the Truth and Reconciliation Committee, and I know you're intimately aware of and instrumental in their activities. And one of the questions that has come forward is, how can we actively engage our Native communities in New Brunswick to improve their quality of life through art?
Yeah. The first thing that comes to my mind is the many, many times that we actually worked with Aboriginal communities. And even little Raven, who was speaking in North Point Douglas, she's Aboriginal. In Winnipeg, you have many, many Aboriginal communities who are now urban. It is very clear that what helped the Aboriginal communities in Canada survive to the colonial experience is the strength of their culture. Survive to, what did the residential schools try to and effectively destroy was this strength, this connection to their heritage, their history, their memory, their connection to the land. If it wasn't for culture, they would be dead today. They would be dead today. I like it when, in many occasions, when we had dialogues with the communities, Aboriginals and non-Aboriginals together, because we have a shared history. And what the Truth and Reconciliation Commission is helping us do is confront this history together. It's not an Aboriginal thing. It's a Canadian experience that we need to participate in. We need to come together, even if it's painful. We need to confront history together, to define how we want to live together. And each time in these dialogues, even in ceremonies that we had at Rideau Hall, very solemn ceremonies, we always had an Aboriginal person standing, coming to the microphone, and before starting, again, making statements about their culture, their history, their memory, and taking the time at their pace to do so. And always in the room, you feel at times a certain discomfort. And then people have to listen. And when we take that time and we listen, we see that culture coming. And really, ça nous interpelle. And it's up to us to embrace it and to see, it's also a part of me, what a richness. This is something that we have in Canada that is so powerful. And I think that, yes, indeed, Aboriginal communities everywhere are actually addressing us and telling us, look, we have this to share with you. And at the same time, it's our way of telling you the problems that we are confronted to and the challenges that are just unacceptable in a country like Canada. I was so happy to hear Sheila Fraser talking about this, saying, we all have the facts, we all know what is happening, so our indifference is not acceptable.
We have time for one more question, and I think if you permit me, what I'm going to do afterwards is give you the rest of the questions as a gift from the audience.
We have a website.
Yes, it's an engagement, you know. If it's readable, yes?
Yes. Well,
I mean, because what we can do is that, you know, for the question who are there, it's possible to answer on our website to this in the next few days, you know. And it's easy to consult the website. Maybe before the end of the
Congress.
Yes,
We'll
to keep a liaison with the Congress, you know. And to answer this question, the website is www.fmgf.
Fondation Michael Jean Foundation, FMGF.
JF.
J, yeah, FMJF. Yeah.
C'est toujours la même.
J, c'est en français.
J. FMGF.ca.
C'est ça.
And I think it's rich for us too, you know, to answer your question.
Well, let me get this one last question out. And you will recognize immediately that this is not my question. To someone of my generation, age 20 to 25, multiculturalism is becoming increasingly outdated and problematic, leading to segregation of culture. I do not believe we have reached the point of Mr. Stephen Colbert where we do not see the erasure of ethnicity, but what do you see as the next step for Canada regarding cultural solidarity, interchange and collaboration?
We are in the next step. We
are
now.
already in it.
It's transcultural.
For example, it's a word that I rarely use, multiculturalism. I prefer the word diversity. What was interesting for me during the tenure, and for Jean-Daniel also, was exploring not our differences, but because I think we've done that. We've done that. We know what our differences are about. And we like to celebrate our diversity. What was of interest to me was to explore all that we have in common. And we don't do that enough. In order to come together as, you know, peoples and one people, not in conformity, not in homogeneity. No, with the richness of our histories, our stories, our experiences, our legacies, but working on things that bring us together. It's amazing how much we have in common in Canada. We think that diverse, you know, spectrum of ours, we have the same concerns, we have the same aspirations, our initiatives are so similar. We want to build more social harmony. We don't run away from challenges and problems. We're always looking for solutions. And we have a younger generation who really has a sense of belonging and wants to cultivate this sense of belonging. They speak the same language in terms of, and I'm not talking about linguistic, I'm not talking about French, English, no. They have the same, they share the same spirit. Their energy is very similar. I remember in Vancouver during the Olympic Games, we took as a pretext the Olympic truce to create a forum, a youth forum around building peace. How do you build peace locally and how do you build peace globally? And we had 650 young people. 350 of them were Aboriginal youth. The rest were non-Aboriginal, and the conversation went in French, English, spoken words, and it was so powerful. It was so powerful also to see how the Aboriginal youth took the floor with so much energy, and how all of them came together. And that was really the spirit of Canada. So multiculturalism, I think there was a time where we needed to say that Canada was not just about two founding nations and the Aboriginal peoples, the first peoples. Canada was also about a lot of newcomers who made the country also. So we needed to present it as a mosaic, and we needed to acknowledge the many cultures. But I think we've reached a point where what we see and what we have to cultivate is la profondeur, the significance of our diversity. And to see it as a richness, not as a problem. And it also comes with challenges, but it's a richness. And it's not just a matter for government, it's every one of us. Also, it's a shared responsibility to make it work. That's where I stand about that. Yeah, that's how I feel about it.
I think the multiculturalism was a political answer to an anthropological reality. But today we need exactly the reverse. Because the anthropology of this society today, it's clearly the diversity. It is clearly the diversity. I think what we are doing, even with the foundation, but a lot of people doing with new technology, it is that. It's made with that. It is the diversity, the reality of the diversity. We need another answer now. We need, it's also the result of a big work of artists, filmmakers, and university I could say, to reveal the richness of the diversity, not as a problem, but as a solution. It's different, you know. It is the triumph of, I could say, the obvious anthropology, you know. And now, sure, you need another shape, another political shape for that, you know. Multiculturalism now is a program. It's not a reality. It's not a reality because a country is changing also a lot. And not only because the immigration, because their own knowledge by itself. That's it. We know better, a little bit better who we are for many reasons. And we know the richness of, I said before, the tapestry. That's it.
Yeah.
And now it's possible to do
something
with that.
There was the word ghettoization, and I think that's the problem, it's the silos. And when I think and talk about breaking down solitudes, it's about breaking down the many solitudes and come together as one. In also, of course, taking in consideration our differences, but this diversity is something so rich that we are working on, all of us together, based also on principles that we share, on values that we have in common and that we share.
There is two types of solitudes, you know. There is very positive solitudes. We need solitudes to go further with the culture, you know. But solitude, when it becomes a ghetto is dangerous. Solitude is not isolation, you know. Solitude is necessary for the diversity too. We need to be ourselves in the tapestry, and we need that. But there is isolation. Isolation is terrible because isolation is the other. You are excluded. It's not the same thing. Solitude, it's possible to respect the solitude sometimes, to create. For example, it's very important to keep the difference different, you know. We are not made because we are the same. A country is made because we are diverse, because I'm not interesting to be with my semblable. What is interesting to be with the country, with the rivers, something completely different, you know. It's the richness. But we need a model to run that, you know, because that Isolation is not solitude. Solitude is richness when it's possible to explore yourself. It's very important for First Nation to have their own solitudes. We have also our own solitudes as Francophone and so on. But it's not negative. It has to be the meeting of difference, of the richest of diversity. It's a good meeting of solitude. It's not 2 solitudes, 3 solitudes. No, diversity is that. But at the same time, it's exchange. Isolation is exactly the contrary. And for me, one of the main obstacle we say, for the multiculturalism, it was a way to frame the isolation step by step. And it's dangerous in a society because the communitarism become the worst enemy, at least.
Alors,
Je pense que...
j'ai complètement perdu le parole à ce moment-là.
She wants the last word.
Non, c'est pas ça. Non.
It's sure yours. No problem.
No, as you were speaking, I wanted to go back to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. What it offers us, exactly this in a way, is to be able to relate to that experience where by coming together we can relate to the Aboriginal experience, and specifically, for example, with the history, the horrendous chapter of the residential schools, by realizing that we all have been deprived of something essential. We all lost. We were all losers in this. They lost a lot because that experience broke their communities. It was very painful. But we too, non-Aboriginals, lost a lot. We lost the possibility of engaging with that civilization, knowing these languages, engaging in a dialogue with these people who are our Aboriginal brothers and sisters. We lost the knowledge that they had to offer. We lost the possibility of engaging in their connection to the land, their experience of this territory, their knowledge of this territory. This is what we non-Aboriginal lost. So in a way, when we come together and we confront history together in that diversity and in a space of dialogue, it's something that is meaningful, and it's part of building this nation that we share. So I find that this is what diversity is about. It's about the necessity of a dialogue where we can share our stories and experiences and come together and learn from them. So I think this is what Canada has to show the world and what Canada has to offer. And the world looks at us. As I mentioned, we carried out 40 missions abroad, 40 state visits. It meant, discussions, and we worked abroad like we worked here in Canada, opening spaces for dialogues and forums. And those who greeted us were very surprised, because normally you come in and out. You stay in the capital and you don't do more. You do the bilateral discussions, you do, the official, and then you come out. And we did not. We went outside the capitals. We opened spaces for people to speak, because we wanted to share the Canadian perspective and gather, the many perspectives coming from the citizens, the countries where we were. And this is something that we heard so much coming from people who are watching us from abroad, from other countries. They're looking at the Canadian experience and they're going, how interesting. How do you manage? Because they fear diversity. In many countries, they do fear diversity. They see it as a problem, not as a richness. And what we are saying, what we have to cultivate it, is it's a richness. It's everyone's responsibility. It's a shared responsibility, and it's about dialogue.
Alors, Madame Jean.
Yes.
I want the last word. And my last word is it's a way to answer a question, very interesting, from Yann Letourneau. I think Letourneau. Do we need more artists in government? Yes, we. Voilà.